My guest at this time is Victoria Toensing. She's a former Deputy Assistant Attorney General of the United States, a former federal prosecutor, and now a partner in the Washington law firm of DeGeneva Toensing. She's joined us many times to talk about the ongoing Mueller investigation into alleged Russian involvement in the 2016 campaign, as well as the investigation she wants to see happening into what the Obama administration was doing during the 2016 campaign. We want to get a reaction today to the news that broke on Wednesday that Attorney General Jeff Sessions is out, resigning at the request of President Trump. We now have an acting Attorney General, and the search goes on for a permanent replacement. So, Victoria, thanks so much for being with us.
Good to be here.
I know you've had frustrations with Jeff Sessions. The president certainly has, since he recused himself from the Russia investigation early on in 2017. So what's your reaction to Trump finally asking him to step aside?
Well, we knew it was going to happen. Trump has expressed his disdain, displeasure, just whatever. Put the rest of the word there with Jeff for quite a while, and really Jeff has not been able to be a good attorney general because of his recusal. Now that's a different standard or a different situation that Rod Rosenstein has, who's just been evil in what he has done, but in appointing a special counsel when there was not even a crime, and staying there and overseeing it when he had conflicts. So, I mean, here's the conflict. It's just apparent. Mueller talks about investigating the president for firing James Comey. He claims it's not true, but he says he's investigating that because it's obstruction of justice. But who recommended that Comey be fired? None other than Rod Rosenstein. He's a co-conspirator if that's a crime. He signed one of the authorizations or applications to FISA for Carter Page. How can he possibly be overlooking this investigation? It's a complete conflict of interest, and the media doesn't blink about it. So what's going to happen now is Matt is going to take over the supervision.
Matt Whittaker.
Yes, Matt Whittaker is going to take over the supervision, and it's going to get out from Rod Rosenstein.
Well, let's talk about conflicts of interest a little bit. You mentioned the one you believe Rod Rosenstein has, and one of the reasons, probably the main reason that Jeff Sessions recused himself from the Russia investigation was because of the Q&A, I believe was with former Senator Franken at the time during the confirmation hearings about whether he had had any contact with the Russians, and he had as a senator, but mentioned it to the committee that he hadn't as a figure in the Trump campaign at that time. And
that was not the reason. That was not the reason, Greg.
So what was the reason?
Because he had been involved in the campaign. There's a special directive or regulatory clause that if anybody has been participating in the campaign is investigated, that they have to recuse themselves. That was the reason. The press made it about the testimony before the committee, but it wasn't so.
Well, let's talk about Matt Whittaker a little bit. First of all, what can you tell listeners about him, and what do you make of calls for him to recuse himself because he's had opinions on the Mueller investigation over the past year?
Oh, my goodness. Is that a joke? I mean, what the Democrats can come up with, I don't know how the brain works. I mean, I would have trouble. I have to give them credit to say, oh, my God, he opined one day. And in hypothetical situation, it was if Mueller goes beyond the directives that Rod Rosenstein put in the authorization, then he'd have to come back to get permission to expand it. That's what he said in that op-ed piece or in his comments on CNN. So this is a joke. This is a joke, and that the Democrats are so good at it. The Democrats are now decrying the U.S. Senate because it has two senators from every state, and oh my, that's not fair. Well, have you heard that one today?
Yes, yeah. Because the national, the whole country's votes for Senate, there were more votes for Democrats, so therefore it's wrong for the Republicans to have the majority, something along those lines.
It's like, did they ever go back and read their history? Did they ever go back and read the compromises that were made in writing the Constitution and how government works? I mean, it's so embarrassing.
Yes.
Joy Behar, that epitome of knowledge about the U.S. government. I mean, it was blasting the Senate saying that it was gerrymandered. You can't gerrymander the U.S. Senate, for God's sake.
You don't gerrymander states. That's a good point. And states mattered back then. But let me get your reaction to another thing, which I'm sure will be pretty similar to your reaction about whether Matt Whittaker ought to recuse himself. And that's all the comparisons. I heard a number of hosts with clips about this yesterday, comparing the firing, essentially, but forced resignation of Jeff Sessions to the Saturday Night Massacre during the Watergate era.
Let's see. Jeff Sessions, I think, is recused from everything about this investigation, so it shouldn't matter one whit whether he's there or not. He's not even a participant. And that's much different than the Saturday Night Massacre that Bill Ruckelshaus, whose Senate race I worked on way back then, and maybe most of your listeners don't even know who he is, but he refused to fire. It was Archibald Cox, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And then Bob Bork went ahead and did the firing. But those were the people who were doing the investigating, for goodness sake. And Jeff can't even lift a finger to this investigation. So it's apples and oranges, of course, but the Democrats always get to put their thoughtless thoughts out in the media.
I won't ask you about whether you think Rod Rosenstein's going to resign. There are rumors that he's going to, but we've heard those rumors so many times over the past year plus. But there are some reports out there that the president is seriously considering Christie as the next attorney general. Do you have any thoughts, A, on that, and B, on who he definitely should or shouldn't pick for this?
Well, certainly not Rod Rosenstein. You should get him out of there as fast as can be. Joe and I, my law partner and husband, were sending messages to the White House like the day of the inauguration that they should get rid of Comey, but nobody listened. So the president's learning you get rid of people as soon as you can. He couldn't do it before the election. So I assume that that Rosenstein is not far behind at this moment for leaving the Justice Department. Now, who should replace? Chris Christie would be good because you know what? He can kick butt, and he knows the Justice Department. I don't think they should put anybody in there that doesn't know the department, because I know when I was there, the bureaucrats hid. They were put in as a section chief, so that didn't look like a political appointment, but they had lots of influence. So you've got to get somebody who knows that when Andrew Weissman comes back after the Mueller investigation is over and wants to have his place again as the head of the fraud section, which I used to supervise, that the new attorney general says, I think we have a spot for you answering FOIA requests.
Speaking of which, whether it's Christie or someone else, how much do you expect the next attorney general to try and dig into the FISA requests and all sorts of other things that we've talked about from the 2016 campaign?
Well, I don't think any political appointee should do that. I think that what should have been done by Rod Rosenstein, because Jeff was, of course, recused, that they should find some well-respected federal judge who people feel comfortable with. If he starts unearthing things about Democrats, he'll be pillaged. But nevertheless, get somebody who at least at this time is well respected, and have them look into it, because these are serious transgressions of the Constitution. The Obama administration weaponized the tools that we use for intelligence gathering to spy on Donald Trump and the Trump campaign. There's no other way to put it. And it has not even been looked at. This Huber guy that Sessions claimed was looking at Uranium One and the FISA issues. Well, as you know, my client is Doug Campbell, and Huber has been in business for a year. I want you to answer my question. Do you think that Huber has even contacted my client to interview him?
I'm guessing by asking the question, you basically answered it.
Yeah. No.
Wow.
So that's a farce. That's going on there. So somebody's got to get in there and really dig into these things. So the Uranium One, the FISA, the weaponization of our intelligence tools to go against a political opposition, and people have to be made to answer for this because it can't continue. Just like, and I don't mean to get too far off, but just like in the Judiciary Committee, those women who came forward and made false statements about Brett Kavanaugh, they have to be, and as Grassley, kudos for Grassley for doing it, has referred them to the Justice Department. People cannot do this, disrupt not only congressional hearings, but attempt to ruin a person's life with false statements and then not have to answer. There has to be some addressing of these violations.
Victoria, last question. In his resignation letter, Jeff Sessions talked about how proud he was of improving things at the border, improving the violent crime rates, prosecuting gun crimes and so forth. So my question to you is, outside of the Russia issue, which might be a little bit like asking, other than that, Mrs. Lincoln, how was the play? How do you think he did as Attorney General apart from Russia?
Of course, those were Jeff's bread and butter issues. He believed in them deeply. But he was just like a scared rabbit in dealing with anything that had to do with the Russian investigation. But I give him credit. He absolutely did a very good job on those things.
Well, we'll be watching to see who the next nominee is and where all of this goes soon, where we know that the Mueller team is supposedly writing its report now. So it might not be long. But Victoria, thanks so much for your time as always.
Writing a report without having indicted the president, which you can't do anyway? My goodness.
Have a great day. Thanks for your time.
Bye.
Victoria Toensing, former Deputy Assistant Attorney General of the United States, former federal prosecutor, partner in the Washington firm of Toensing. I'm Greg Corombos reporting for Radio America.